Hello everyone, it's your host, SethTheProgrammer, and today I thought I'd do something a bit different. So, I've been scaling and talking about and reading Dragon Ball long enough to get a PhD in the thing, but there's one thing I almost have never really talked about, and that is my thoughts on the actual story of Dragon Ball. Now, I've talked about stuff in Super, such as my thoughts on Kefla, but that was still more so power scaling related, but this video isn't meant to be a criticism of Dragon Ball's writing, but rather an explanation that I'm not seeing on YouTube. It's weird because I talk to YouTubers all the time about what I think of these things, or the philosophy behind the characters, or even help people make a video on it, but I myself haven't even touched it on my channel, so let's end that today. Today, I'm going to be giving you my raw thoughts on what I think of the philosophy of Goku, the pursuit of happiness, nature versus nurture, self-discovery, and the meaning of strength. By the way, I'm not saying I'm some god of narrative analysis or something. I'm simply saying, as a long-time viewer and someone who's read the series like 800 plus times for my job that does have to analyze it, this is my opinion I've come to. So I don't want to get too deep into some of these earlier themes and character arcs that Goku gets into because I feel they aren't neglected when people talk about him. I mainly want to get around the Android Saga and onward, so apologies for being vague with some of this earlier stuff, but I'm going to briefly brush over it. The series starts with Goku and Bulma's journey to find the Dragon Balls. This journey is important because it allows Goku to have this extremely naive and humorous character, while also expanding his perspective and allowing him to learn about the world. However, this is also the beginning of the pursuit of happiness, and while that seems like a somewhat basic concept, for a character like Goku, it gets actually kind of complicated, as a lot of people who read anime or manga, especially Dragon Ball fans, they don't understand that a character can change or has a goal unless it's specifically stated, whereas that's not very realistic. When you see a real human being, they usually don't announce their character development, they kind of just change over time, and this kind of catches people off guard a lot of the time, but I find Goku somewhat surprisingly a realistic interpretation or presentation of development as a person. But in this case, I'm going to be explaining it because obviously people don't understand that a lot of the time. But an example, what does Bulma want? A boyfriend. What does Yamcha want? A girlfriend. And what does Goku want? We don't know. Essentially, everyone but Goku is established as knowing and getting the things that they want, or learning they didn't really need the Dragon Balls to obtain their true happiness. So, after the Dragon Balls fly off and Goku departs from his friends on the flying Nimbus, Akira Toriyama writes an interesting quote on the page from their narrator. After Goku says that he wants to fly off to see Master Roshi and says he hopes to become as strong as him one day after witnessing his power of him vaporizing a mountain, showing his desires for almost the first time in a while outside of just like obtaining his Dragon Ball, which represented his grandpa and meeting nice people, the page said it's going to keep going and going and going with the next chapter called The Price of Power. Basically, at this point, Goku has a pursuit now, which is to become more and more powerful, just like what he witnessed from Master Roshi. Goku eventually defeats Piccolo Jr., surpasses all of his masters, including Kami, and is generally considered to be the strongest man on the planet. Kami then offers Goku the Seed of God, in which Goku actually declines. It can almost be seen that this was the completion of Goku's pursuit of happiness, but it wasn't. Goku hasn't learned what he truly even wants quite yet, or who he even is for that matter. And this battle would also establish Goku being merciful on his opponent and introducing a new side to him. This could simply be that he didn't want to kill Piccolo because of the tournament rules and he wanted to win the tournament, with battles like King Piccolo being far more deathmatch-like a little bit earlier. It can't be denied that something snapped with Goku during this encounter, however, with him wanting to give Piccolo a second chance even after the tournament was over. I don't want to get into the morality of Goku throughout this video, but I'll drop a small sentence here or there about it, as it is important to who he is and his philosophy in the end. To solve that, we introduce Raditz. Raditz introduces serious questions that were brought up since the beginning of the series and answers them. Goku is an alien and doesn't know his own history. This presents a few potential growths and paths for Goku as a character, one being that he realizes there's beings far stronger than he could ever imagine outside of just the Earth. He learns and rejects his Saiyan ancestry, and the question of nature versus nurture begins for the reader. Nature versus nurture in this case being how much of what Goku accomplished was actually due to his own efforts, and not just because he was an alien. Goku is also forced to work alongside Piccolo to defeat Raditz, presenting a new concept that even the strongest in the world can't beat everyone by themselves like Goku has done in the past. Goku sacrifices himself to defend Gohan, and Piccolo starts trying to raise Gohan to beat the new Saiyans while Goku trains on King Kai's. An interesting concept here is that Goku actually tries to spare Raditz, but soon realizes that Raditz simply takes all of Goku's mercies as opportunities to get the upper hand on him, presenting the idea that the path of redemption wouldn't be so easy as stopping mid-fight against a powerful opponent and saying, "It's okay, you can go now." This would lead into Goku versus Vegeta, with Vegeta, the super elite Saiyan prince representing nature, and Goku, the low-class Saiyan warrior who has trained with many masters, representing nurture. With Goku using Kaioken and the techniques he learned from King Kai, he is able to close the gap between him and the super elite Saiyan and overpower him. However, Goku still has much to learn. He still underestimates his own nature and who he is, while also still relying too much on his own individual strength. This would introduce Oozaru Vegeta, or Grade 8 Vegeta, who Goku, even with all his nurture, could not defeat without the help of all of his friends. Now, while some say this proves nature is stronger than nurture in Dragon Ball, that's not what's being presented here. The idea here is that Goku's nature is something he doesn't understand, and him not understanding himself is actually holding him back. For example, if he knew about Oozaru's and didn't fear his own nature as a Saiyan, facing Vegeta might have been completely different. This was even remotely implied a few times during the King Piccolo arc, when it was implied that Goku's true potential is still something hidden inside, represented by the Oozaru within. However, once again, Goku is satisfied and even spares Vegeta, knowing that he would never be happy if he let someone stronger than himself slip away like that. Goku also spares Vegeta due to a few things, such as Piccolo's redemption arc starting to come full circle, Piccolo saving his own son, and Goku thinking that Vegeta, now unable to fight back and having fully lost, might take his mercy more seriously than Raditz. Before continuing, one thing I want to outline is that in Dragon Ball, and this is a common mistake I see all the time, is that when a thread begins for a character, whether it be nurture versus nature, or the pursuit of happiness, and so on, it doesn't just stop because a new arc begins. This isn't a movie. It's a long, ongoing, weekly series that needs to be looked at as such. Anyway, the story would lead into Namek and Frieza, where, guess what? The Super Saiyan is now a focus, which I'm sure some of you are starting to see where this is going. Basically, the idea here now is Goku isn't just nurture. For him to become truly strong, he needs to accept both nurture and nature. This is a concept that Vegeta obviously struggles with and fails to realize for quite a while, but this isn't about Vegeta. This is actually fully presented in this arc where Goku takes King Kai's advice about how Saiyans can easily adapt to gravity and begins his gravity chamber training. I'll quote the narrator here, in which he says, "Around and around he goes, working his body and ki almost to death, and then refreshing himself by eating the sensu, as the 7 beans given him by Master Korin are already down to 3. Whether he realizes it or not, Goku is living and reliving one of the primal cycles of the Saiyans, gaining strength by facing and overcoming death." End quote. I think it's critical to note this, as it's the first display of Goku utilizing both his nurture and nature to become more powerful, whether he even directly realizes it or not, as the narrator implies. Whereas Vegeta, in the same arc, you'll notice, simply spams his Saiyan Zenkai ability, which is essentially the Saiyan's ability to grow stronger after being brought to near death, which is literally Vegeta abusing his nature, which he has always done. Goku, after finally utilizing his nature and his nurture, becomes so strong that Vegeta thinks he not only surpassed Saiyan strength entirely, but might actually have become a Super Saiyan. During the Frieza battle sometime later, Goku is forced to don the mantle of the final Saiyan and the avenger of his race, not only donning this mantle, but also blatantly transforming into a Super Saiyan, a status revered among his race as only a legend. With Frieza's malicious taunts, Vegeta's tears, and the death of his friends who weren't enough to help him this time, Goku accepts his nature and completely overpowers Frieza. Now, while I'm not saying that Goku would have to say, "I'm a Saiyan," to defeat Frieza or something, I'm simply saying that that's what is happening on a deeper level than just some raw fist-fighting Chad alien battle. Some think that Goku didn't accept his Saiyan nature completely until the Broly movie, where he tells Broly to refer to him as Kakarot, which if you think so, that's fine. I've heard different arguments around the subject. However, it can't be denied that he is now fully utilizing his nature and nurture qualities in this battle, and thus completing that cycle of character development for himself. After Frieza, Future Trunks arrives and tells the Z-Fighters of the androids. Beings that can even take down Super Saiyans with pretty much no problems, a force that should exceed what Goku has gone through so far. Goku is also informed that in the future, he will die of a heart virus, one that is not curable at this time and is pretty much destined for this fate. Although Trunks provides an antidote from the future, Bulma and the others think that destroying the androids before they become a problem is the right course of action, in which Goku interjects saying, "We haven't even seen them do anything bad yet," which is true. We haven't seen them do anything bad yet, so why are we taking the words of a stranger from the future to kill these people? This is later debated about by Kami and Piccolo as well, in which a whole chapter is dedicated to showing the androids aren't actually all that bad of people. In the manga, they kind of butcher this concept by having them like fight with people and like kill people in self-defense, but in the manga it's way more subtle, and they are very peaceful in the manga compared to the anime. Cell is then introduced. Cell, a being who is the combined genetics of the past generation of fighters with the ability to use their keys and techniques, with Goku soon recovering thanks to the heart virus's cure, which, by the way, I really liked the whole Cell's key becomes whatever fighter's techniques he was using. I really kind of wish they didn't drop characters saying that all the time. Anyway, this here is a huge foundational point for Goku as a character and for everything he will become. This event will put a new idea of Goku being able to fade from this world at any time, something the Dragon Balls won't ever fix, something he can't overpower with his Super Saiyan form, something that can kill him from out of nowhere and there's nothing he can do about it at any time. He basically gets lucky and someone comes from the future to give him a way to solve it, but he is powerless against this event. He also now recognizes that due to his presence and his past actions, the world is being affected in a negative way, in which future Trunks' entire timeline may have been destroyed due to his actions as a child when he destroyed the Red Ribbon Army. This begins the hunt for a successor. Now, this doesn't snap with him right away, but when he sees Gohan training and quickly surpassing him, a half Saiyan with more potential than anybody who has been fighting since he was pretty much a toddler, a fighter that can surpass Goku, he realizes that he has found his potential successor. And what better way to test this than to have Gohan duke it out against Cell, a being who represents the entire last generation before him. It's even implied that Cell doesn't even have the genetics of Gohan. It's literally only the past generation. You can say that this is one of the reasons Goku actually gives Cell a senzu bean from during the Cell games, but Goku has made many mistakes with this decision. The first of his mistakes, most notably, which Piccolo actually directly points out, is Goku's lack of understanding and lack of emotional sensitivity. This isn't something I really want to talk about here, but it's generally one of those moral compass debates people always have. Goku is later shown with development in this area, most popularly in the new Broly movie, where he can sense that Broly isn't a bad person, rather than blindly trying to hope he isn't bad like with many other fighters or villains. You'll also notice throughout the series he doesn't really care as much about true villains, such as Zamasu, not trying to redeem them as often, although in Super there isn't much room to show this since most of the antagonists he faces aren't even necessarily bad people a lot of the time, more so just kind of nihilist like Hit, who is just an assassin fighting in a tournament under orders from a god of destruction, or Jiren fighting for the sake of his universe, and so on. The next mistake I feel is the most pivotal to the narrative I'm trying to construct for you guys, and that is Goku failing to realize that Gohan isn't the answer he is even looking for anyway. He is not the one who will save everyone and take his place. Goku eventually helps Gohan's confidence and cheers him on from the afterlife to assist him in destroying Super Perfect Cell, a fighter who recently achieved a massive Gohan-like power-up, and after destroying Perfect Cell, Goku doesn't want anybody to revive him, thinking he is the cause of many fighters coming to Earth and the burdens the Earth has to face, using future Trunks as kind of a gauge. Once again, Goku is focused on himself, but at least this time he's thinking of the greater good and of others, regardless if this is actually a good or bad thing for the planet. In the Buu saga, we have a theme of the mortals surpassing the gods, and a being who destroyed those gods, Majin Buu. At the start of this arc, we are introduced to an older Gohan, and a rumor that Goku will return to Earth to participate in a tournament is announced. This is more than likely Goku testing his own progress from the afterlife, and to see how his friends are doing without him, especially Gohan. Goku also meets Goten and Kid Trunks, who he learns have massive reserves of potential higher than anybody he's ever seen, reaching a level to give even Android 18 and Gohan a hard time as just some tiny kids. Gohan, after witnessing Videl's smackdown by Spopovich, gets aggravated and unleashes his state beyond Super Saiyan against Kibito, the assistant of the Supreme Kai. Although, to everyone's note, Gohan doesn't seem as strong as he was against Cell. After Gohan's energy is stolen by Spopovich and Yami, the Z Gang chases after them to find out where Babidi is under orders of the Supreme Kai. Here, they meet Dabura, a fighter that even reaches a level on par with Cell from 7 years ago, possibly even greater, and we get to see Gohan face him one-on-one. To everyone's dismay, Gohan is weaker now than he was in the past and cannot seem to defeat Dabura, which agitates Vegeta and somewhat disappoints Goku. Of course, this means Gohan as a successor has somewhat lost its way, and even someone like Vegeta is probably stronger than him now. Not to say Vegeta is weak in Goku's eyes, but when it comes to the ever-needed rise of competition and powers, Vegeta doesn't exactly come off as the gold medal a lot of the time. Vegeta himself even notes this when he feels Goku's insane power spike versus Yakon, and decides to concede his body to Babidi in order to fight Goku and prove he is of that level, and for many other reasons. But even then, Vegeta still falls flat, and Goku doesn't even go all out against him in their battle. Goku also learns that Vegeta was massively amped on top of this, which is probably even more disappointing. Although Vegeta was able to reach Goku's ascended Super Saiyan level at the end of the day, or Super Saiyan 2 with all of these shenanigans, he still wasn't Goku, who was withholding a power that could even rival Majin Buu himself, Super Saiyan 3. So if anything, all of this only justifies Goku's opinion of the successor even further, and that Gohan has failed in that regard. Goku displays a power on Majin Buu's level, if not greater, and actually decides to spare him for the sake of the next generation. The successor is still on Goku's mind. However, now he has a new target, which are Goten and Trunks. With their potential combined, they'd surely be unstoppable, and what better way to display this than with the fusion technique, which combines two fighters together and multiplies their powers exponentially. The new fusion, Gotenks, was strong, and was even able to obtain Super Saiyan 3, which took Goku his entire life to learn. It's almost a contrast to how Goku used to treat Master Roshi back in the day, obtaining Kamehameha almost immediately. Easily surpassing Vegeta and the others, Gotenks takes on the new Super Buu, an even more powerful version of Majin Buu than the others so far, and can actually toy around with him. But Gotenks is childish and fails to finish Super Buu off, running out of time due to his lack of knowledge on Super Saiyan 3 and his time wasted goofing off. Gotenks wasn't a warrior like Goku and Vegeta at the end of the day, he was just two kids put together. But, to Goku's disbelief, a way to draw out all of his son Gohan's latent potentials was now possible with the Elder Kai, a Supreme Kai that the God of Destruction Beerus had sealed away long ago in the Z-Sword that Gohan had saved. This would be the ultimate test. Surely, Gohan, with all of his potential that surpassed everyone else's, said maybe Goten and Trunks, brought out to its limits, could defeat Majin Buu. After all, he wasn't a child like Gotenks. But Gohan, when stronger than everyone else, becomes arrogant, and this is described in Super during his retraining with Piccolo. However, against Super Buu, he takes it too easy. Sure, he doesn't have a time limit like Gotenks, but his arrogance has consequences. Taking it too easy on Buu, he underestimates his ability, and Buu absorbs not only Piccolo, but Gotenks as well, who Gohan allowed to fuse to re-challenge Buu, feeling he had everything under control if things went wrong. While many feel this is a bad character moment for Gohan, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing, this isn't the focus of what's happening. The focus is that Goku is relying too much on his successors and individuals. Eventually, even Gohan with all his potential is absorbed alongside Goten and Trunks. There is nobody left to face Majin Buu but Goku now. But Goku, having tried too hard to allow other people to take him down by themselves, only succeeded in allowing Majin Buu to surpass him. Vegeta eventually appears, and together they form Vegito. The two greatest masters and rivals in the universe stop worrying about their own strength and decide to work as one, becoming unstoppable. Even Majin Buu with all his might, and even Goku's successors absorbed, is absolutely no match for their combined strength now. Vegeta eventually defuses inside of Buu, but this gives Goku and Vegeta the opportunity to sort of defuse Buu as well. This results in Buu being reverted to his true or pure form, also known as Kid Buu. Kid Buu then destroys the Earth, leaving only Goku and Vegeta alive to face him in the world of the Kais. But Goku and Vegeta dislike having to rely on each other's combined strength to win a fight, as it's almost like forsaking their own powers, and they resort to their individual abilities once again. Even as a Super Saiyan 3, Goku stands no chance of defeating Kid Buu. This is often debated about, as Goku says if he could just charge up he could defeat Buu, and Vegeta theorizes that Goku might have been holding back so Vegeta could have his turn. However, both of these are not true. We actually know in Daizenshuu that Goku was at full power and could not defeat Kid Buu, and we also know that he actually never planned to give Vegeta a chance to fight him. On top of this, Goku's Super Saiyan 3 form was wearing down drastically with his newer living body than it did before, falling for a similar lack of experience in the body as Gotenks. Vegeta soon fails to defeat Buu as well, and Goku thinks it's time to call upon Gohan and Gotenks together to defeat Kid Buu. And while it's actually confirmed in some guides that Gohan and Gotenks working together with those on the planet of the Kais could have defeated Kid Buu, a new focus is actually brought up, funny enough, by Vegeta. Vegeta states, how about we let those we're protecting fight for themselves, and hints at the Spirit Bomb. The Spirit Bomb, an ability that combines the powers of everyone who accepts it into one attack, this ball eventually absorbs everyone's powers on Earth, including Gohan, Goten, Trunks, Android 17s, and so forth, which, alongside a newly charged up Goku, completely vaporizes Majin Buu for good, and Goku makes a wish that he wants Oob to return as a good person, or Buu, and yes, for those that haven't realized it by now, and we've been waiting the whole series for this, that is in fact Goku's wish we've been waiting to hear. His desire to face Buu as a good person. This is basically representing Goku's desire to always face stronger and stronger rivals and horizons, and the hopes of always improving. You could say that this desire was in fact what Dragon Ball was after Shenron first disappeared for the first time. Goku just didn't know it's what he actually wanted until the end, so the series kind of naturally gave it to him and he just never realized. During this, Goku also learned that it was never about the individual strength of the fighter to save the day, or that individual strength was never truly strength, so much as it was the power of all of his comrades and friends together that were truly his strength. And looking back, it is true. Think back of all of his battles, including Vegeta, Frieza, Cell, and now even Majin Buu. Those days of individual strength had pretty much died during the days of King Piccolo, or Piccolo Jr., and things were changing. But even then, he still had help training for those fighters. This could have been an okay place to end Dragon Ball in my opinion, but of course, we now have to get into Dragon Ball Super, and yes, Dragon Ball Super does continue these themes that I outlined earlier, although mainly only for one arc. In Super, you'll notice Goku is a lot different now, and many fans seem to be angry saying he's regressed into a stupid shell of himself, but I'm actually okay with this quote-unquote dumbing down of Goku, as in all honesty it makes sense. Goku is essentially not being such a tryhard. He's recognized that it's not all about himself and what he can do for others, but what everyone can do for each other, so of course his personality is going to change with his outlook a bit. Now, not to say it completely and utterly changed, he's still proud and obsessed with his own strength, but his outlook and anxieties have, if that makes sense. This is personified and solidified once again with Super Saiyan God, which by its very nature requires people to work together to achieve, and isn't Goku's own strength which allows him to surpass all others, including fusion, to face the God of Destruction Beerus. Goku not liking this is more exaggerated in the original Battle of Gods movie, but in the anime it's more exaggerated that Goku made the strengths of others his own, which is actually a pretty fitting start to Super considering how it ends. Throughout Super, we have a lot of different and new themes, such as not relying on the gods and so on, but these aren't really all that interesting. We also continue the Surpassing the Gods arc, which was in the Buu saga. However, I think the most interesting arc is during the Tournament of Power, at least for this character arc. Now, this isn't to say I thought the Tournament of Power was necessarily the best, but it continues the narrative I was presenting during the original Dragon Ball segment, whereas the other arcs don't really do it as much, at least in Goku's case. That point in the Tournament of Power is both the Jiren and Ultra Instinct, and putting a bow on Goku's character. So I've heard a lot of people talk about Jiren, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but I think the level of analysis people give Jiren is shallow. This isn't to jerk off my analytical ability or anything, but it's pretty disappointing when people don't understand Jiren's concept as a character and simply, well, look at that generic backstory though, and write a red X over him and just disregard him. May 9th, 2018, The Dragon Ball official site releases an interview with Dragon Ball Super Series director Ryota Nakamura and producer Satoru Takami. During this interview, many of the concepts that went to Jiren's design came up, including the flashy red outfits of the Pride Troopers and the hopes to make Jiren an ultra-talkative and heroic antagonist, unlike his nihilistic counterparts Hit and Zamasu. However, Akira Toriyama, the original creator, goes against this and wants Jiren to be a character who doesn't talk. The heroic role is then given to Toppo, the second fiddle of the Pride Troopers, instead. In this interview, a lot of things are brought up, including Jiren having a lot of emotional baggage, not being a bad person, and many other things. But this quote here is a very important one for me from Nakamura. In quote, "While the universe survival arc may be Goku's story, I think it might actually be Jiren's story too. I think that was Toriyama Sensei's intention when he set up someone like Jiren as the greatest rival, someone who's not simply evil." End quote. Jiren being Toriyama's intended greatest rival is important, as it's once again overlooked. Most people simply conclude because he's the strongest so far and he's a good guy, but this isn't true either. Jiren is essentially Goku's dream. In their second fight, when Jiren was going easy on Goku in his blue form, Jiren asked Goku what he seeks, in which both Jiren and Goku agree they seek what is beyond strength and want to become stronger. Strength, for those that haven't picked up on it yet, is the results of all the experiences someone has gone through. Strength is essentially who you are as a fighter and person. If the way you lived and fought was right, you will be strong. This is now put into question if Goku made the right decisions leading up to this moment as a warrior and as a martial artist and person. This total journey put on the line in one fight is personified with Ultra Instinct. The color white, symbolizing all colors put together, is perfect for Goku's design of now white hair, which represents all of his journey and experiences finally coming together as one and slamming against Jiren. The theme of strength is often confused with your raw power level. In this case, it's more of a message, a meaning that created your strength and who you are. In fact, Super and its writers go out of its way to make this very clear, and this is shown in Vegeta versus Toppo. Toppo disregards his beliefs about justice and everything he proclaimed he was prideful of in order to obtain more strength. I could go into more detail, but this is just an example. Some consider this a powerful resolve, and while it probably is, and actually allowed Vegeta to reach Goku's lesser levels back in the Buu arc when he became Majin Vegeta, Vegeta did not forsake himself like Toppo, making the same errors Vegeta did in the past, and thus came out on top by believing in true strength, his true self. Even Jiren brings this up and constantly refers to Vegeta as a proud and respectable warrior, showing distaste for Toppo, someone who is supposed to be his friend. Jiren, who is someone who fully believes in individual strength and that if the individual isn't absolute, he will not succeed. He is what Goku thought was right many years ago. He is what he thought he wanted to be. He is what he thought he wanted his successors to be. An absolutely strong individual above all others. Jiren's story is then personified as one where his friends abandoned him because in his world, there were no Dragon Balls to just bring people back to life whenever they died, like in Goku's world. Jiren's friends died, and they died for good. Jiren can almost be described as a Goku without the Dragon Balls. Goku's whole life comes slamming against Jiren's absolute power, and while they have a pitched battle, Goku overpowers Jiren, showing his journey overpowers Jiren's journey. However, this would be contradictory if Goku won the battle alone, regardless of the symbolism, and Goku's Ultra Instinct fades away, because to prove a point to Jiren, despite Goku being stronger, he's not going to defeat Jiren because he's individually more powerful. At the end of the day, Goku alongside some of his greatest enemies and friends come together to defeat Jiren, Goku's greatest rival, thus stealing the idea of the individual away for good. Goku has now found his answer, and the answer is the strength of others becomes your strength. Jiren eventually found this strength as well after regaining his power from Toppo's calls and cheers, and with a smile and glass shattering around him to symbolically show that his box and overpuffed fixation on his own ability was shattering, although it was too late by this point and he was alone against Goku, Android 17, and Frieza, and thus lost. Goku had won all of his battles due to this point, due to everyone he's met helping him along the way, and for him to win and become an absolute power that suddenly defeated everyone on his own would be a spit in the face of his own journey. It's just not who Goku is at the end of the day, and more than likely never will be. But as I outlined earlier with Majin Buu, it's not what Goku wants to be anyway. He wants to constantly find those greater rivals, greater horizons, and never stop growing. He doesn't want to, nor can he ever obtain absolute strength, for that is his wish.